Letter 6. A Home Away from Home. Dear Lady Mary, the United States of America did not exist at the time you wrote your letters. You knew, of course, of a British colony to the west of the Atlantic, where many of your countrymen were emigrating to set up businesses, settlements, and farms. Many of your compatriots, including urban and educated shopkeepers and tradesmen, skilled craftsmen and farmers, sought new life in these colonies. The descendants of the Quakers of the North Midlands area near your ancestral home of Thorsby Hall founded a city which became an important part of America's history, the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia. Dutch, Swedes, and Germans came along as well, and these pockets of settlers, after 100 years of living together, all learned to tolerate each other and their differing traditions and religions. In an effort to maintain the property and independence they already enjoyed, and to resist the taxation without representation imposed by your good King George III, son of the king in power when you went to Turkey, these Yankees banded together and won a hard-fought battle for their independence, creating the United States of America. I tell you all of this not to gloat over the fact that your all-powerful king could not hold on to this colony, but to tell you that a magnificent country was created from it, indeed, the first democracy in the world. Its founding principles were the fruit of many fine men, many of whom descended from your English shores. When I first went to Turkey in that summer of 1978, a very strange thing happened to me. I felt as if I had not gone away to a foreign country, but that I had come home, to my America, this country of varied traditions, peoples, and religions. Since you don't know this America, I am sure it is hard for you to understand what I am talking about, so let me try to explain. I remind you that at the time of that first visit, I had been living in France for several years. You, too, were familiar with France and the French, as you spent some time in Lyon and Paris on your return trip to England from Constantinople. You make some very amusing and pertinent remarks about the French society and culture, and you state that you think Paris has the advantage of London in the neat pavement of the streets, the houses being all built of stone, and most of those belonging to people of quality, beautified by gardens. You had little patience, however, for French women, absurd in their dress and unnatural in their paint, and for the nauseous flattery and tawdry pencil of Lebrun. I admire this country and civilization immensely, but I have to admit that sometimes it is not an easy place for a foreigner to live. You are often made to feel excluded from this society by your foreign birth, heritage, religion, or language skills. In addition, Parisian culture relentlessly pursues refinement and perfection. Even as a foreigner, I was expected to play by those same exacting rules in this demand for excellence, and at times it was hard to bear. In comparison, Turkey is a merciful and accepting country. When I went to Turkey for the first time, I sensed a freedom from this guarded societal structure. I did not feel like people were looking at every move I made and waiting for me to make a false step. People were forgiving and kind, like those in the America I grew up in. It is perhaps difficult to explain to you, Lady Mary, but when I discovered this land and met its friendly people, I knew I could make myself understood here, for we spoke the same language. You felt as if you were going to an entirely different culture. I, on the other hand, felt that I had somehow oddly returned home. And the more I got to know Turkey, the more I was convinced that it resembled my own country of America on several levels. Firstly, on a personal level. I come from a family of preachers and teachers, and I have never let go of that Midwesterner's goggle-eyed perspective on the city, and certainly on foreign places and other cultures. Those great fawn plains I saw outside of Sivas were just like the great corn and wheat fields of the United States. The rumbling of their tractors and the smell of their mud and manure transported me back to the prairies of my uncle's farm in Kansas. Osneek seemed like a small Ohio village with its main street lined with sycamores, while Tokat reminded me of a western cowboy town. Life in these towns resembled life in small Midwestern towns, with grain co-ops, tractors, and coffee shops. You can substitute a tea garden for the coffee shop, but the conversation revolving around crops and taxes and the feeling of camaraderie is still the same. People in both countries pepper their conversations with snippets of scripture, and my Midwest and my Turkey are unapologetic in their defense of the same shared values: religion, family and children, the good earth, community, sharing, simplicity, faith in God and service to Him, love of nature, animals, daily life, love and marriage, combat for survival, and above all, a love of homeland. Did I come on that first trip with any prejudice against Turks? I don't think so, because I am an American and not a European, and so I was not branded with the stigma of the terrible Turk knocking at the doors of Vienna. I only had images of Turks fighting shoulder to shoulder with my countrymen in Korea and standing by our side in NATO. Looking at the geography of both countries alone is enough to establish similarities between the United States and Turkey. America is a huge country, and compared to Europe, Turkey is a big country too, bigger than France and Germany combined. Both are lands with geographies of strong personality, each having 7 distinct and varied regions, very similar in their makeup. The Northeast, the Atlantic, the South, the Great Lakes, the Great Plains, the Northwest, and the Southwest of the United States, compared to Turkey's very similar 7 divisions of the Anatolian Plateau, the Eastern Highlands, the Southeast, the Central Lake region, the Black Sea region, the Mediterranean and the Aegean, and the Thrace and the Marmara. Like the United States, Turkey has bountiful coasts, plains and mountains, some deserts, and a varied climate. Both are bounded by 2 seas, experience wide and extreme climate changes, as well as some frightening, dangerous natural phenomena, such as earthquakes, tornadoes, hurricanes, floods, and avalanches. The United States has 2 major mountain ranges that run north to south, and Turkey has 2 running east to west. Both are lands of great rivers: the Tigris, the Euphrates, the Mississippi, and the Ohio. Both are lands of impressive peaks: Ararat, Urses, Uladag, McKinley, and Rainier. Of midland chains of lakes, the lakes of the Aradir region, and the Great and Finger Lakes. Of impressive natural wildlife and birds. Of rich natural resources, water, coal, and of varied crops of tropical fruits, bananas, citrus, and every possible type of grain. When one looks at our social structure, there are similarities too. Turkey is a country like America, based on meritocracy. It has a society made up by citizens who have earned their fame by hard work, not what they inherited by class and birth, like in France and your England. Both offer its citizens the potential of great social mobility. The Turkish business community is as dynamically entrepreneurial as America's, ready to tackle the 21st century on equal footing with the rest of the world. Turkey is full of headstrong, determined, positive, can-do people, not afraid to make mistakes, just like my fellow citizens. But it is perhaps in the makeup of its populations that I feel that the 2 countries resemble each other the most. There are so many different types of Turks. All cultures have left their mark in the DNA of the children now born there. Romans, Byzantines, Persians, Armenians, Arabs, Greeks, Georgians, nomads from Central Asia, great Seljuks from Persia, Mongols from the East, and the Ottomans. Just like its wide regional variations, it has a rainbow of peoples. To be a Turk means to be a citizen of the Turkish Republic, and that represents a national rather than an ethnic identity. They are heirs to the cultural traditions of the Ottoman Empire and the modernization ideals of Ataturk and the West. We, the people of the United States of America, understand this, for we have all come from somewhere else, with different languages and religions and educations, united in our pursuit to build a great country. It is not just the similar physical makeup of our lands and our people that made me feel at home here. Our problems are similar too. I have seen destitute villages filled with hungry children, ramshackle houses, and poverty in both eastern Turkey and in Appalachia. Like America, the discrepancy between the rich and the poor is staggering. Both countries have recently suffered cruel natural disasters. The Izmit earthquake of 1999 and the Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans of 2005. We are both societies riddled with internal problems, violence, and strife. And yes, unfortunately, we both have issues with some population groups that are not entirely integrated into the democratic dream. Yet we are free to fulfill the promise of that dream. Upon your return home, you wrote to the AHBÂR-I that I cannot help looking with partial eyes on my homeland. You state that all we get by traveling is a fruitless desire of mixing the different pleasures and conveniences which are given to different parts of the world and cannot meet in any one of them. I do not return home from my travels to Turkey and compare how much finer my country is to it. However, travel there does help me to feel proud of both my country's achievements and those of this country I have just visited. The similarity between the two countries points out to me even more vividly the lessons we can learn from each other in order to build the community of nations in which we live. These similarities have made it possible for this outsider to become an insider. In any case, one that always feels in a home away from home. An Ohio Yankee in Sultan Osman's court. Sincerely, Catherine Branning.